So here we are on Barren Island, and it's known for its unique name, known as Barren Island, and it suggests that it's completely void of life and of anything interesting, but we're going to see if that's actually the case. As you can tell, it's a volcanic island, and when you back up a little bit, you can see that's just east of Andaman Island, and then over here to the west, North Sentinel Island, everybody's favorite. I came across this place by just looking over the area, and I noticed this little island just kind of sitting alone off to the right, and figured out that it was actually a really cool place, ton of tourism, and yeah, it makes me want to go there now. Over time, I'm going to be checking out all of the Andaman Island chain, and so far we've covered North and South Sentinel Island, and in the future, I'm going to cover the rest of the islands in this entire chain. So today, we're going to explore Barren Island and discover just how barren it is, see if the volcano is currently active, and figure out if it's currently inhabited. So figuring out how large Barren Island is pretty straightforward. Like usual, we're going to grab the ruler, and then if we go and figure out the width, we can see that it's roughly 2 miles across. So it's really not that large by any means, and comparing it to North Sentinel Island, we can see that it's much smaller. Once we grab the ruler again and see just how far away the island is from Port Blair, which is actually the closest city to Barren Island, we can see that it's one of the largest cities on the Andaman Island chain, and once you measure it, it's about 90 miles away. It keeps on coming up as this name as well, Sri Vijayapuram, but I'm pretty sure it's just called Port Blair, but I don't know. Let me know. And then once we come to South Sentinel Island and do the same thing, we can see that it's roughly a mile across, so Barren Island was like 3 times that. So this leads us to the question that everybody loves to ask the most. Is Barren Island inhabited? And surprisingly, yeah, it's actually not barren, and there's a decent bit of life found around the island because they're known to have some wildlife like goats and birds and some rodents found on the island, but honestly, not much else is found on the land. So I got curious as to where the animals came from, and once I looked it up, it said that some sailors dropped off the goats a while back, and they essentially were just able to live off the shrubs and whatnot that grows on this island. But here in the water, there's natural reefs, and there's actually more of them that are forming as we speak, partially because of this volcanic lava that flows into the ocean. So that of course means that there's tons of fish, reef sharks, and more aquatic life that thrives off of these reefs. So if we know that there's animals on the island, does that mean that people are here as well? So from all the research I've done, I couldn't find any sources of people living on the island, and it's possible that someone or like some group of people could have lived here at some point in time, but that doesn't seem to be the case for right now. And when you take a look around, that would make complete sense. Like the vast majority of this island is just overtaken by this volcano here, and there's plenty of ash and sediment here that's run off. And after looking around this place, there's really not a great place that you can even set up a base camp. Right here is the only place that I found that it could even be like remotely decent, just because this is the only low-lying area I found on the island. And I would say that this is as good as it gets because it's relatively flat. Once you back up and start to look around, you can tell that it's pretty steep. There's no actual flat parts pretty much anywhere on this island. So not only is it difficult just to find a decent low area to have a base camp, but on top of all of that, this volcano is absolutely active. The most recent eruption was actually in September 2025, so it was like literally a month ago. And then here you can see with the eruption history was 1787, the first time that it was recorded that this has erupted, followed by episodes in 91, 2005, 2017, November 2022, and then here recently in September 2025. So it'd be insanely cool to live on an island with an active volcano, but at the same time, it would be absolutely terrible to live on an island with an active volcano. So this Smithsonian website that I came across actually documents this volcano's activity levels, but it hasn't been updated for a bit. And it looks like this is due to the government shutdown, and this was recorded before the 11th, so hopefully all this is updated again soon. And this volcano on Barren Island is absolutely massive because it stands at about 1,100 feet above sea level. And I got curious as to why this volcano looks like this because as you can see, there's 2 lower depressions on either side of the volcano, and apparently these are called calderas. It's the chambers of lava that run underneath the volcano, and then once those collapse, all of the stuff on top collapses with it. And when I start to zoom into this pit, I don't know exactly what this is, but it sure does look cool. I'm hoping that's like a lava pocket or something. But you can see how massive these craters are. And the crazy thing is that there's not only one, because when you come on the other side, there's another one over here. And I appreciate that they look different, 2 completely different styles of calderas. And then once you come back this way, you can also see that this is the previous runoff from the various different eruptions. And when you compare that to the white sandy beaches of North Sentinel and South Sentinel Island, you can see that there's a massive contrast here. And it doesn't mean that it's any less amazing. It's just a different type of island in the island chain. And personally, I think this is just as cool because you can see the ripples of the lava starting to flow down. And then once it reaches the end and goes into the water, that eventually starts to make those coral reefs. Before I started making these videos, I really only knew about North Sentinel Island and the Andaman Island chain, but I've quickly come to realize how nice all of these islands are. There's truly a ton of variety to see and do on multiple islands. You can go down to the main city or the town of Port Blair, you can visit the volcano here on Barren Island, and then you can also go to South Sentinel Island's unreal beaches with the tourism over there as well. And from certain angles, this kind of reminds me of Half Dome in Yosemite National Park. This is just because of how Google Earth looks. I don't think this is actually how the volcano looks in real life. Similarly to South Sentinel Island, you're going to have the correct permits in place in order to even take a charter boat over to the island. Because nobody's permitted to step foot there because it's still an active volcano and obviously it could lead to possible injuries or worse. Have people set foot on Barren Island before? I'm absolutely sure. Are you supposed to? No. And I say that because on the Discover Andaman website specifically states you're not allowed to get off the boat and walk on the island because it's dangerous, but you can go around the island by boat, enjoy water activities, and see the volcano from a safe distance. And this is another Andaman Island tourism site that I came across, and it states, it's important to note that visiting Barren Island requires prior permission from the Forest Department in Port Blair. Also, you can visit the island only during the daytime, and you're not allowed to stay overnight due to safety reasons. Imagine if they let some tourists sleep overnight and then they wake up with the ground shaking and possible lava just spewing out of that volcano. So now that we know where Barren Island is located and what permits you'll need in order to reach the island, that brings up the next most important question. How do you actually reach Barren Island? So luckily it's pretty straightforward because like all of my videos, I've done a good bit of research and I came across this Discover Andaman website. And it's essentially the Andaman Island tourism website and it gives you details on all of the islands and how to access them. Well, of course, that's all of them except for North Sentinel Island because we all know why, but if you for some reason don't know, make sure to check out my previous videos. So it says here, to visit Barren Island, you need to plan ahead, and you must get special permission from the local forest department because Barren Island is in a restricted area, and there's no regular passenger boats to the island. The only way to go is to book a private boat from Port Blair or Havelock Island. So you go from Port Blair and it takes about 4 to 5 hours. From Havelock Island, it takes about 2 to 3 hours. So a lot of my audience is from the United States or the UK, so if you were to take a flight out of JFK Airport in New York City, it's about 8,700 miles. And that's roughly a 24-hour flight to Port Blair. That's absolutely insane. And if you're flying out of London in the UK, it's about 5,700 miles and about a 15 to 17-hour flight to Port Blair. So not as bad, but still pretty rough. They give even more detail of the trip. The boat can carry 7 to 8 people, and it usually includes fishing, snorkeling, scuba diving, lunch, and drinks. So here's the total cost. It's kind of confusing because it's in rupees, and of course it's different than USD. So it's basically 1,50,000, which translates to roughly 1,689 USD. And then if we look at the other one, that one is called 1,70,000, and it translates to roughly $1,915. And then on top of that, they want you to pay for some permits too. So it looks like the permits for the foreigners are going to be 2,500 INR, or basically $28 USD. And then for the 500 INR, it'd be $5 USD. Let me know if these conversions are correct because I'm basically just basing this off of Google and I'm hoping that whatever they're telling me is correct as well. So if that's truly the cost, then it really would make sense. I mean, you get everything from fishing to snorkeling and scuba diving, and then the food and the drinks. It's actually a good deal. You get the opportunity to see the only active volcano in all of India, which is more than worth in my opinion, and more than worth the money for a day. So once you fly into Port Blair, I assume most people would just ship out of here since you would have just flown in here from wherever you came from. I looked around Havelock Island and I wasn't able to find any sort of landing strip or an airport or anything, but when you go to Port Blair, it's right here. It's pretty large actually. So I guess you'd have to be a local to Havelock Island, see the benefit of a shorter travel distance. Or if you're doing a full tour anyway and simply want to fly out of Port Blair and then take a boat over to Havelock Island and then just have another boat to take you to Barren Island, I guess that would work as well. So I came across this YouTube video where someone went to Barren Island and it's from the first person perspective, so it's obviously even better. I'm not going to show any footage because the last time I did something like that, I actually got one of my videos taken down. It had like 350,000 views and I had to take it down and re-upload it. But they're basically right here, right in front of the island where the lava flows down into the ocean. And due to that, like I said, there's a lot of coral reefs that formed and are still forming. So you'd imagine these coral reefs are covered in sea life, and you're completely correct. When you see that video, you'll see what I mean. But speaking of some of the wildlife you'd see, what kind of wildlife would you actually be able to find in those coral reefs? So you're going to find stuff such as angelfish, butterflyfish, parrotfish, and then larger species like barracudas and reef sharks. And it also says here that you have the possibility of running into some manta rays or some dugongs, and that would be insane. I would love to see those in real life. And as far as vegetation on the island, from what I've read, there's really not much. The main vegetation on the island consists of pretty much just like tough grasses and shrubs that can withstand the island's challenging conditions. And it says that these plants play a crucial role in stabilizing the soil and prevents erosion, which is particularly important in a landscape constantly reshaped by volcanic activity. On my last video about Inaccessible Island, this commenter Poppy Chulo let me know that he wants to know more about the weather and plant life, so I wanted to make sure that I covered it in this video and the videos that I make going forward. It's amazing that these websites exist. This one's called mountainforest.com, and it has all of the weather for Barren Island for like the next week. And it looks pretty terrible. Looks like it's going to be raining for the next 5 days straight, but on Monday looks like it's going to clear up. So I just want to let y'all know that I really do read these comments and I really do take the suggestions and try to implement them in future videos. As I mentioned in one of my previous videos, there was a tsunami in 2004 that would have hit all of the Sentinel Islands and everything in the Andaman Island chain, including Barren Island. And when I go up here to show the historical imagery and then click on 2004, you can see that there's nothing really here and that it's basically covered in water. I guess there's something wrong with the satellite and it wasn't able to pick anything up. Or that tsunami was so bad that it actually took over the island when no one was looking. But being for real, when you go back to the main satellite image on Google Earth, it wasn't really affected, and if it was, then we can't tell. In one of the previous videos I did, I talked about how it's technically possible that the North Sentinelese could have visited South Sentinel Island, but I just wasn't sure if they had actually gone. It's possible because they had some canoes that they in theory could just go over open water in, but that's assuming they even know where South Sentinel Island is. So using that same thought process, I was thinking, it is technically possible for the natives of the Andaman Island chain, like the Anj or the Anje or the Jarawa or the Great Andamanese, to have actually visited Barren Island. So it is possible that it happened. I have no idea. I looked it up and apparently it is possible to see Barren Island from the Andaman Island chain. So just like with North and South Sentinel Island, it's possible that these native tribes of the Andaman Islands could have gone to Barren Island. I looked it up and it looks like it's technically possible for someone to actually go there from the Andaman Islands. But the same question arises that I had before. While it's possible, what's the actual reason aside from human exploration, since the island that they're currently on has pretty much everything they would need? But to play devil's advocate, it's a no-brainer that humans love to explore and visit new places that they haven't seen, and if they were able to see it from the Andaman Islands, there's no doubt that they would at least think about going to Barren Island. So does all this mean that Barren Island isn't actually claimed by anyone and it isn't governed? Well, just like North Sentinel Island and South Sentinel Island, it is owned by the Indian government. But what does the Indian government actually have to do with the islands, and how did they even obtain the Andaman Island chain in the first place? So the Andaman and Nicobar Islands were actually colonized by the British in the late 18th century. So after India's independence in 1947, they had sovereignty over the islands that were passed down to the Republic of India. And the Sentinel Islands were included within India's recognized territory when the country's borders were defined. And personally, I'd love to visit the island legally one day. Like I said, I'm sure it's absolutely beautiful and it'd be an amazing experience, and it's something that I'd want to be a part of personally. The only thing that I wouldn't want to be a part of is the boat ride out there, because every time I've gone on boats, I get sick. So I can't imagine having 4 or 5 hours of a boat ride and having no option to leave. Now that I've done all this research, like I said, it makes me want to go. So if you guys would actually like to see me take a trip over there and just record it all and make some videos on it, let me know. So as always, I try to get as much information for you guys about this place. I do my best. I'm going to miss stuff here and there. So if there's anything that I did miss that you find, just let me know. So as always, I really appreciate you guys for watching my videos. I'm really looking for the next person to suggest the next island that I should cover. So if you have a good one, leave it in the comments. And as always, I really appreciate you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.